Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here walking with you in God's Word, and we are in Micah chapter 5. Merry Christmas. And I know it's we've already celebrated that, but it's Christmas every day. God is with us, Emmanuel. But this is that prophecy that is read throughout this Christmas time, Advent and Christmas, Micah chapter 5, because as there is that prediction of Jerusalem being rubble, as there's going to be this prophecy, this oracle of doom and justice over Israel and Judah. Assyria's coming in, Babylon's coming in, they're going to be taken out into exile. But there's a day. There's a day to look forward to. There's a promise that God has always had in his hand and through his word. And that is, he is going to save his people. He's going to redeem his people. And as we talked about last video, there's that near prophecy of Cyrus of Persians being that instrument of God's redemption of his people and bringing them out of exile, out of Babylon exile, and bringing them back to Jerusalem. So there's a nice redemption there, but there is a day, Merry Christmas, Emmanuel, Bethlehem. Although you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come somebody great. He's going to rule the people. And this is Micah chapter 5. There is going to be a Messianic era. There is a promise that's going to be fulfilled. And while bringing the people back to Jerusalem is going to be amazing in 539, 538 BC, but it is going to be like none other. Is going to be the time when God visits his people, not with a pillar of cloud by day and a fire by night, not with just angelic messages, but rather the word of God is going to become flesh and dwell among his people. And the prophet Micah, while he begins his first verse and kind of that doom again, there is this hope and there is this promise of God's promises becoming true with this child, with this Messiah, with this anointed one, with this ruler, with this Prince of Peace. The Messiah, we know him as Jesus. Micah chapter 5, pointing the whole time, the whole chapter devoted, not towards this doom and this rubble and this destruction of Jerusalem, but rather the rebuilding of God's people, but the redemption and ruling and visit of God, God's kingdom in the Messiah to his people. Micah chapter 5. Here we are. Let's read together. Marshal your troops, O city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. And so we get to see this first verse, and Jerusalem's going to be besieged. This is talking about the city of troops, right? And so rally together, you're going to be besieged. Yeah, Babylon is coming, right? It's still that prophecy. And we get to see that Babylon did strike. And so this is kind of a real prophecy when it did happen, in that exilement. They struck Zedekiah, the last king, and made him blind when they came in. But they besieged the city. Yet, that's given that one verse in Micah chapter 5. And here comes 14 next verses about the pointed promise of the Messiah. But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, Judah being that fourth born of Jacob, of Israel, the tribe of Judah, right? That's where the promise is coming. You can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 48 and 49 to be able to see these promises of God way back in the blessing of Jacob for the future. Out of you, right? Out of you, though you're small, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. God himself, as we get to see here. Therefore, Israel will be abandoned until the time when she, who is in labor, gives birth, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. There's going to be a baby born. And when the baby born, there's going to be this collection, this uniting together of Israel. He, the baby, the one who's coming out of Bethlehem, he will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth, and he will be their peace. Can you imagine Micah and his prophecy? He's standing in the midst of this dilemma and this reality of the people around him. He's prophesying to people who are being besieged, or this prophecy of, hey, Assyria's coming in, Babylon's coming in. And while there might be war and that realness at that point, he's pointing in the midst of that storm, in the midst of that, he's pointing and saying, there's going to be something that happens in Bethlehem. And it's been promised of long ago through Judah, all the way from the beginning of time in this Genesis time, and being able to say, there's going to be a ruler over the people, not just a king. He's going to be a king, but he's going to be a king that surpasses all the kings of Israel. And he's going to rule the people. He's going to shepherd the flock of God's people. He's going to be the good shepherd, as Jesus picks that up in John chapter 10. He's going to shepherd the people. He is going to bring about the majesty of the Lord his God. But in the midst of war, in the midst of besieging, in the midst of justice and judgment that's happening in amongst this oracle of Micah, he says these 6 words, and he will be their peace. Their peace. Not just a king who's going to rule, not just a king who's going to have these troops around him, but he will personally, he will take on, and he will be their peace. He's going to bring about the peace of God, the Prince of Peace. And as we get to see that word, it's such a beautiful, it also in the Hebrew speaks about this prosperity, peace, because they're just going to depend on God. God's promises, God's deliverance, God's provision. So we get to see this play well in the Hebrew here. He's going to be their peace. He's going to be their prosperity. He's going to be what delivers them from everything. How beautiful that is. And so he continues to go on. It says, when the Assyrian invades our land and marches through our fortresses, we will raise against him 7 shepherds, even 8 leaders of men. There's going to be many wars and rages. They will rule the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod with drawn sword. He will deliver us from the Assyrian when he invades our land and marches into our borders. He fights for us. The remnant of Jacob will be in the midst of many peoples, like dew from the Lord, like showers on the grass, which do not wait for man, or linger for mankind. The remnant of Jacob will be among the nations in the midst of many peoples. It is purposeful. It's hard to see now with the besieging and the taking over Jerusalem, or Israel and Judah, but it is purposeful that these people were spread throughout the lands, because God's going to visit them again and unite them, not necessarily just in a space, but unite them in the faithfulness of their God, in the worship of their God. And there's going to be this dispersion for the fact of God's people going out. And then those people that are out, as it says here, right? There's going to be a remnant that's going to be in the midst of many people. There's going to be an opportunity for people to be faithful where they are. It says going to be, the remnant of Jacob will be among the nations in the midst of many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among flocks of sheep, which mauls and mangles as it goes, and no one can rescue. And then it goes forth and being able to talk about this triumph of Israel. Your hand will be lifted up in triumph over your enemies, and all your foes will be destroyed. And in that day, in the Messianic Era, in the Messianic day, when Christ comes, declares the Lord, I will destroy your horses from among you and demolish your chariots. You don't need horses and chariots. Are actually used as that's going to be my provision. That's going to be my strength, back in Egypt, right? I will destroy the cities of your land and tear down all your strongholds. Look around you. What do you need? I will destroy your witchcraft, and you will no longer cast spells. I will destroy your carved images and your sacred stones from among you. You'll no longer bow down to the work of your hands. I will uproot from among you your Asherah poles and demolish your cities. I will take vengeance and anger and wrath upon the nations. They have not obeyed me. When Christ comes, he's going to aim at sin. When Christ comes, he's going to aim at enemies. When Christ comes, he's going to actually aim at the true enemy and demolish it. Take hold of it. Change it. Yeah, when Christ comes, it's going to be a day. The day that the Lord has promised to redeem his people, to save his people, to frankly be with his people. And so while they're sitting in this space right now in Micah's time, he's pointing to a time. God's promises are going to come true. And it's going to be better than what we could ever imagine. May you hear that in Micah today. I don't know what you're sitting in right now, but Jesus has come. Jesus is with you. He's defeated sin, death, and the power of the devil. That's not just a saying, that's a reality. But Micah's also pointing us to that day when he comes and rules and reigns here on earth. When that second advent comes and being able to actually know that the presence of God is with us and sin, death, and the power of the devil eradicated, done away with. Yet as we sit today, in whatever you're sitting in, may you hear these 6 words. And he will be your peace. Lean on Jesus. He is your peace. Look to Jesus. He fights your battles. He's won. The victory is yours in Jesus. And he is your peace. Jesus is your peace. May you sit in that today. May you bask in that today. May you celebrate that today. That God's promises are true. That his victory is won in Jesus. And Jesus has invited you to be in and with him in his kingdom. And to that I say, thanks be to God. Have a blessed day.